Today on Hillbilly Voodoo, we're going to build this flat lap rock polishing machine as requested by many of the new subscribers. And it's built out of a wood lathe of all things. Stick around, see what type of Hillbilly Voodoo we had to do to make this machine and to polish up these nice shiny rocks. Now from my video about cutting open the rocks in my yard and my adventure down this rabbit hole of lapidary. Yeah, that's the word, lapidary. I mentioned that I was going to try to turn this little mini wood lathe into a flat lap machine. Now, I don't know whether this is a good idea or not, but it's an idea, so let's roll with it. Yeah, all you new subscribers out there that jumped on the channel with the rock cutting video, well, welcome to Hillbilly Voodoo and to the Hillbilly Voodoo family. And yeah, I guess you guys are going to watch me try to turn this mini wood lathe into a flat lap. So what are we going to need to do? Well, this thing's been sitting here for a really long time, and I haven't really used it in probably, I don't know, 5-6 years. So I plugged it in there. Now let's see if it actually turns on still. Probably should have cleaned some of the crap off of it, but oh yeah, it turns on still. And it's got a variable speed thinger here. Oh, that's really loose. Yeah, probably should have checked that. Anyways, well, we'll have to take that lathe off of that table there and be real careful because we have somebody living down inside that hole right there, and she has babies, and I don't really want to disturb her right now. So anyways, this is a really small wood lathe. You can see the brand, and if you see that brand, then you know what part of the world we're from, because there's only one place that sells that brand. Anyways, yap. Who cares? Nobody cares about that. Let's unbolt this lathe off of here. Now we're going to need to figure out a way to mount something on there. This lathe happens to have, which most wood lathes have, is a threaded end here that accepts 1-inch coarse thread. Now, I used to use this lathe for making rings and polishing my rings. I built this little arbor here. Expanding arbor, you slide the ring on there, you tighten that up, blah, 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 blah. Polish the ring. So these are just 1-inch nuts. These are just 1-inch nuts. So we can build ourselves an arbor that goes on the end of there with a 1-inch nut, right? So that we can mount our little lapidary disc type thing or whatever we're going to mount our sandpaper on here, and that's going to spin around. And of course this is going to be, yeah, you know where I'm going with this idea, I think. And if you don't, well, just keep on watching. Now, the idea here is to build something that will screw onto there, right? That has an arbor. You know what an arbor is? Little shaft that, yeah, you know what an arbor is. And if you don't, well, like I said, keep watching. So, from my research into the lapidary discs and the diamond wheels and stuff, most of them have a 5/8 hole. Unlike your grinder wheels, which have, oh, I don't know what that is, 7/8? Yeah, I think that's 7/8. Yeah, 7/8 hole. So, 5/8 hole, just like your stationary grinder wheels, which I just dug this one out from under the bench. Didn't even realize I had it, but anyways. So our little arbor should have a 5/8 hole in case we want to actually buy some real professional type wheel thingies. And yeah, 5/8 hole. You know what else has got 5/8 holes? Wood saw blades. like out of table saws and circular saws and things like that. So maybe we can use some wood saw blades and glue some sandpaper to the wood saw blades. Is that a good idea? Only you'll have teeth whipping around, and we'll obviously have to cut the teeth off the wood saw blades unless we want to cut our fingers off. But yeah, okay. So let's build that arbor first. Now I have what's called a coupling nut for ready rod, and that just happens to be 1 inch. So I'm going to go out there and I'm going to find me a 5/8 bolt, and we're going to weld a 5/8 bolt sticking out of that. Does that make sense? Sure, it makes sense. And it'll create us an adapter, an arbor type thing for that. Yeah, okay, let's go do that. So let's go dig around in our buckets of bolts out here and see if we can find a 5/8. Is that a 5/8? Hey, look at that. 5/8 right on the top. Fine thread. Let's see what else we got in here. 5/8. Ew, that's all covered in grease. Yeah. Okay, well, that's one. And I think there's some more over here. Yeah, there's some here. So we're going to take that 5/8 bolt, and we are going to turn the head down so that it will fit inside there. And then we'll weld it in, and that'll give us our adapter, right? Does that sound like a right idea? I'm not 100% sure that saw blades are 5/8. I'm pretty sure. So let's check. Here's an old blade here. Oh, it's dark in here. Yeah. Okay. So let's put that back up there because we don't need that right now, and then we'll know where it is. Let's go turn this head down and stick it in that coupling nut and make ourselves an adapter. Got my bolt chucked up here in the lathe, and we're going to turn the heads down on that bolt and the nut so that slides over. Now if I remember right, we turn that down round so that there's no more flat, and that will fit right inside there. You guys getting where I'm going here? That's going to be in there like that, welded together. I'll have the bolt sticking out the end. We can put our blade lapidary sandy type thing on the end there, and that will thread onto the wood lathe. Okay, so let's turn that down and see if this whole idea is going to work. We got our little lathe unbolted here and flipped up on its side, kind of in the configuration that I think it should be. Our little arbor adapter thing here is built. Now I didn't get super mental with the precision of it because I have no idea if this is going to work. So if it does work, then I'm probably going to build one that's more balanced, because these nuts are not exactly precision. If you look, you can tell that it's thicker on one side, and it's probably going to wobble, but it'll be together enough that it'll give me an idea whether it's going to be a real thing or not. So let's stick this on here. Not that this lathe is super precision either, because yeah, it is what it is. Now, while I was screwing around at the metal lathe, I cut the teeth off of a saw blade. And I'm thinking that if we glue sandpaper onto that, that will work. That will work as a flat lap, I guess. Now, I also have this stone here, this grinding wheel. And I'll put that on there for now. See if this is actually gonna do anything. Obviously, we don't have a water reservoir here. If this is gonna spin and it's gonna do kind of what I think it is, then we'll build our little water scatter splash shield thing here. But let's see if this is actually gonna do something here, or if we're just barking up the wrong tree. Yeah, like I figured, we got a bit of a wobble there, so well, that is definitely working. Probably not a good idea to be doing too much grinding on this stuff without water or without a dust mask on, so we'll leave it the way it is. But yeah, that is definitely working. Well, as you can see, that is definitely working, and it's working really fast for shaping anyways. I don't know about the polishing part of it, but that's a super coarse stone, so yeah, this is going to work. So what do we need to do now? Well, we obviously need to build some type of stand here, because there's only 2 holes there and 1 hole there for mounting this thing, and it's supposed to be flat like that, right? So I'm gonna have to build some type of stand here. Now, I don't want to make this thing super huge and gnarly to move around, because I know that if it's a pain in the ass to move and work with, then it's not going to get used. So keep this stand pretty basic, but I think that maybe we better go out and look for more alternatives to saw blades. Yeah, gotta have some other materials out there that we can make round discs out of to glue sandpaper to that aren't hardened saw blades. They're not super fun to machine. So let's go check the piles of ground obtainium and see what we can find to make a few more discs out of, so we can put different grits of paper on it. And yeah, let's go find something anyways. Now I'm thinking here that we don't even have to go out to the piles of ground obtainium, because we can look at the piles of ground obtainium that are in here. Well, there's some round big pieces of gear there. That's pretty thick. I don't need anything like that. What else do we got laying around here that we have been tripping over forever? Hey. What about a frying pan? Yeah, that's at least as thick as that saw blade. And you know what? I got all kinds of frying pans. Yeah, I got. Every time somebody I know replaces a frying pan, I tell them to give me their old ones, because I put stuff in them like there, and like there, and there. So, frying pan. Ooh, there's a good heavy duty thick one. You know what? Let's see if we can make this work. I'm I'm going to poke a hole right in the center of that. Nice 5/8 hole. And I'm going to chuck that up in the lathe and turn it down to sandpaper size. Yeah, let's try that. Today on What Is That Idiot Doing Now, we got a frying pan chucked up here in our lathe and we're going to turn a circle out of it. Yeah, does that sound about as stupid coming out of my mouth as I think it does? Anyways, we chucked up that arbor adapter thing in there, drilled a hole through the frying pan, got her stuck in our lathe here, and we're going to turn a circle out of there and see if we can glue some sandpaper to it. Yeah, okay. Anyways, it is pouring rain out there. I don't know if you can hear or not, but one of my neighbors is leaf blowing. How the hell could you leaf blow when it is pouring rain? Well, anyways, I guess maybe turning a frying pan in a lathe is not the stupidest thing that's happening in this neighborhood today. So let's give a whack at this and see what we get out of this for a piece of metal. I got a few metal discs out of those frying pans, a couple frying pans there. I still have more frying pans, but until I know whether this whole idea is going to work, I'm not going to cut nothing else up, because then I won't have nothing to put anything in. Did that make sense? That totally made sense. Anyways, I'm going to clean these up with some brake clean here and glue some sandpaper on them with this stuff. Why this stuff? Because I had this stuff laying around. Don't know if this is going to work or not, so I don't want to go out and buy anything or get too crazy here. Now, I was going to, like I said in the first rock cutting video, the venture down this rabbit hole, I was going to use a feed dish as my little water catch splash thingy here. But the unfortunate thing with a feed dish is these guys right here seem to think that anything that went in a feed dish is food, even if it's not food. If you pack something around in a bucket, even if it's rocks, they think it's food. If you pack something around in a margarine container, even if it's the bearings out of the headset of your motorbike, they think it's food. There are lawnmowers that keep all the grass and the weeds and everything down around here. Guess what? I don't want rocks stuck in my lawnmower. Yeah, I guess that's kind of a thing that nobody really wants, eh? You don't want rocks in your lawnmowers? So we're going to have to figure out a different idea other than a feed bucket, because as soon as they see that feed bucket on that thing, they're going to want to get whatever's in that feed bucket, and it's going to be rocks, right? Yeah, okay. Anyway, so let's figure out something else that I can use for a splash shield. So what I'm thinking here is just to make myself a feed bucket out of some metal. So maybe if it's made out of metal, maybe they won't associate it with food. They'll probably still associate it with food, but anyways, at least if it's metal, when they chew on it, it won't destroy it. Yeah, okay, whatever. Let's just do it that way. I'm gonna go cut a bottom and some sides, probably about that high. I'm going to make it a little tiny bit bigger around than this disc, because this is the biggest one that I made. And it's sandpaper size, right? So I guess as long as it's close enough to the sides that the rocks aren't going to fall off and spill down, because then I'd have to take everything apart to get the rock out, right? So yeah. So I'll make it about the same size around as this one. And weld it up out of metal. I don't know if I'll show you guys. You know what I'm going to do. It's just going to be a metal disc. It's going to be a feed bucket that's made out of metal. Yeah, anyways. While I was wandering around checking the fence lines this morning, Yes, this is another day. This is a multiple day video. Blah, 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 blah. Not staged, all that crap. I found this. You guys know what this is? Well, yeah, it's a rock. But do you know what kind of rock this is? I have no idea. It's got kind of blues in there and clear and I don't know, all kinds of weird stuff. I kind of want to cut it open right now, but I'm in the middle of making this thing, so it's going to have to wait a little bit. The trouble with my yard is you go about 500 feet in any direction from my yard and there is absolutely no rocks. Yeah, none. Well, they're all about this size. They're all round. It's all gravel and sand. And right where I am, there is this giant, huge pile of rocks. I'm pretty sure after 100 and some odd years of people farming this land, every farmer in the country piled all their rocks on my property and then sold it to me because I'm a sucker. But anyways, I got rocks. I don't know if all the rocks on my property have come from this area or not. So you know what type of rock that is. Tell me what it is and maybe I can look it up and see if it's a rock that comes from this area or if somebody kicked that out of their pocket. Seems like every time we get a big, huge rainstorm, which is what we had last night, and that's why I was checking fences, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, you don't care about that. Anyways, every time we get a big, huge rainstorm, I get all kinds of weird stuff coming out of the ground that I never really seen before. So, that's what it looks like. You tell me what that is, leave a comment. I don't know, some type of crystal, I think. Quartz, maybe. But it's I don't know if the camera's doing it justice or not, but it's like purpley blue. Anyways, let's get back to building this thing. I'm gonna go build my little metal feed dish here now. I'm not gonna show you that because it's probably gonna be boring as hell. But anyways, I'll come back when I'm ready to put this thing all together and actually try it out. Because that's the bottom line, eh? If it works, then cool. I just made myself a lapidary tool, a flat lap out of wood lathe. And if it doesn't work, well, then we're gonna have to figure something else out. You see what I mean? There's a feed dish right there. Yeah, exactly. It's like they can friggin' smell it or figure out that maybe there might have been food in there at one time. And these goats, if you can see how fat they are. They are not underfed by any means. But yeah, like I said, a feed dish. Probably not such a good thing to be putting rocks in. Okay, let's go back to building this thing. I got my little feed bucket made out of metal there and a little drain tube coming off the side. Mounted it up on a piece of wood there that's shaped. Just bolted through the bottom of the lathe. My arbor in there. And I glued some sandpaper to some frying pans. Yeah, glued sandpaper to frying pans. Okay. Well, what else do I need here? Well, we got somewhere to catch the splashy water, but we got nowhere for water to come in, right? We're going to need something that's going to drip some water down onto our sandpaper, or maybe we can just use a thing. And now we'll find, hey, you know what? I have a reservoir that I made to water the blade on my sawmill that I never used. I wonder where, you know what? I know exactly where that is. Let's go see if we can find it. Pretty sure that I left it over here somewhere in one of these piles. Underneath the anchor rope. Yep, that's it right there. It's not very big, but it's got a little valvey thing on it, and yeah, you can put water in that. Now, how are we going to attach that? We can use some baling wire. Yeah, there's some baling wire there. I wonder if there's any I don't know if we got any big hose clamps laying around here anywhere. Huh. Usually we do. Hey, there's one right there. That's probably too big. Yeah, I think that one's a little bit too big. Well, maybe we'll just baling wire it on there, and unless we trip over something on the way, that will work. What do we got? All kinds of small hose clamps there. Well, let me fumble around a little bit more here in the dark and see if I can find myself a big hose clamp, and if not, then I'll just baling wire this thing on. I managed to trip over a hose clamp on the way back over here, and that's what we got. It's not quite the right size, so I jammed a piece of wood in the back there and shimmed it up. Now we got a reservoir. So let's stick this sandy disc thing on there. Give this thing a whirl. Might look pretty crude and rude, but it'll give me an idea if this is going to work or not, and whether I'm going to like this kind of setup here. I was looking on YouTube University there last night, and there's all kinds of different things that I can make to polish. I think that maybe I'm going to try to create a cab machine, but I'm going to experiment with making different wheels and gluing sandpaper onto different wheels that spin like this, right? I don't know if that's going to work. The problem that I have is purchasing anything. I'm a cheap prick and I don't like buying things. And even buying sandpaper, yeah, kind of don't like that. But anyways, if I could make my own cab wheels, then that would be probably a cool thing to do. And yeah, blah, blah, blah. I got a rock here. Doesn't look like a very awesome rock, but you know what? It's not shiny yet, so let's see if we can shine this rock up with what we got going on here. See if this whole idea is even going to work. Well, guys, this thing is impressing me a hell of a lot more than I thought it would. It is polishing these rocks up really, really nice. I just used the 80 grit so far, and I've changed over to the 220. Is it 220? Yeah, 220. Kind of a big jump, but we'll see what happens here. I'll show you what these rocks look like here in a second, but I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome all my new subscribers. I've finally hit 1,000 subs. Pretty cool. This last rock video brought a lot of you on board, so welcome to the Hillbilly Voodoo family, and go check out some of the rest of the channel if you haven't already. We're not totally about rocks. We're about building stuff out of what you got. use what you got to make what you want. In this case, well, we're using the rocks that we got to, well, to make them pretty again, or make them pretty. Whatever, you know what I'm saying. So anyways, welcome to the channel. I'll show you what these rocks look like here. I'll get you a close-up. Well, we'll see what I can do here, because I'm not too much of a professional at this showing rock thing yet, so. Took most of the scratches out of that one. There's a big chunk missing out of the center, so. Kind of hard to see in this light here. It's definitely one thing that I need to get better with is my videography and at least my lighting situation, because it's either the lights or my eyes that aren't working very good, and I'm pretty sure that it's a little of both. That one's got some neat little swirly things in there. I don't know. Like, it's a gray rock on the outside, got swirly things on the inside, whatever that is. Now, I used it to try to shape a cab, and it seems to be working pretty good. I don't think maybe I picked the best piece. It was just, I think it's just a chunk of quartz. I'm not really sure. So like I said before, I don't know nothing about rocks. And I shaped out a bit of a pendant here. If it polishes up nice, I'll poke a hole through it. And I kind of sort of tried to facet a little bit. I don't know if that's coming through enough that you guys can see there. Let's let that up a little bit here. Yeah, definitely need better lighting. But gotta use what I got, right? Maybe when this YouTube thing takes off and is like a big real thing, then maybe I could buy a light. Yeah, right. Good luck with that. Okay, let's see what this 220 is going to do to these rocks now. Now, I'll say one thing that I am finding really cool is the variable speed on this lathe, because you can put your rock on there kind of at a slower speed, and then you can crank up the rip'ems and get her going with your fingers out of the way. It's kind of something I didn't really think about, but water. Guess we better put some water in there. Okay, let's try this again. Well, I've gone ahead and worked those rocks up to 1500 grit. It turned out pretty neat. That's going to be a nice pendant. I'm just going to drill a hole through that and call it what it is. Freeform. Might figure out some way to give it a little bit of a polish. I do have some car wax around somewhere that supposedly has microcrystalline diamonds in it, so maybe that might work. And there's that little funny cab shaped thing. It's got all kinds of weird fractures in it, but it's solid, so I guess we could get some finer sandpaper and get it a little bit more shiny, but yeah, didn't turn out too bad. And there's that black one, dark colored one. Neat colors in there. Kind of hard to see. There's some fractures in there, so it was really hard to polish. Like, the more I started polishing, the bigger the fractures got. So I guess this rock polishing thing is going to be one of those things where a learning experience, I guess, because not everything's going to polish the same way, right? Yeah. So there you go, guys. We've built ourselves a flat lap out of a wood lathe. So if you're liking this type of content, then maybe you can hit that thumbs up button and do the subscribe thing if you want to watch more. And like I said, I'm going to build myself a cab machine, so if you guys want to see me do that, make some comments. And if you guys know what kind of rocks these are, maybe you can make some comments too. Tell me what type of rocks I got in my driveway. Well, I'm going to go and hunt around some more. And then I'm going to cut this one and see what I can find in here in that blue stuff. But until then, guys, use what you got to make what you want. And I'll see you later.